All right, this part 1 of 2 with Jimmy Hamilton of Vortex Optics, and we're talking rangefinders in this one. Listen next week for number 2, all about apparel. Gun Talk Hunt is brought to you by ATN, the future of optics, Gun Dealio, and Silencer Central, silence delivered. All right, welcome in all you Gun Talk hunters. I'm your host, KJ, in with another exciting episode. And this week, we've got joining us straight from Barneveld, right? Did I say that right?
Yeah, you got it.
All right, close enough. I need to say it close enough to being a local. But we've got Jimmy Hamilton from Vortex joining us now. Jimmy, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. You know, it's raining here, as it usually does here in the South. Like, I mean, it's just about every day now. You can count on, you know, kind of that noon to 3 o'clock time frame, just a downpour.
Yeah. We had a little bit of rain here, and I'm way up north, obviously, but it is deadly humid out right now. It feels we don't.
Oh, now come on. Come on. I'm down in Louisiana. Well, if we're going to start comparing humidities, like you need to be further south.
Yeah, no, I don't want to go down there. I feel like I'm getting a taste of that right now, but
I kid you not. Yesterday I took 3 showers. No, 4 showers. And 2 of them were just from just walking outside, just walking the dog. And I'm like, I've got to change. I'm soaked.
You're a very clean guy.
Dude, I've got to, I need to be like, it's just disgusting. You walk out with like, just have to plan on taking at least 2 or 3 shirts with you.
No, thank you. No, thank you.
Yeah, I do miss I do miss falls up north, man. The fall weather up there is absolutely incredible.
Oh yeah. Where it's days like this, you start wondering when it's going to come back around again. But as soon as we hit February, we'll be begging for this hot weather again. I'm sure it's
you'll be like, when's it coming around?
Yeah, perpetually displeased with whatever the current weather situation is. That seems like.
Well, at least you guys get, you know, pretty much close to all 4 seasons.
Yep, we do.
We do not. Sometimes we'll miss a fall or a spring. Well, I kind of reached out to you because I wanted to talk about a lot of the new stuff Vortex has going on. And we've talked about the Vortex Edge before. I've written about it quite a bit. And you guys actually just finished up one of your, kind of a few of your inaugural, long range classes. Real quick, let's talk a little bit about training, because what we're going to really dive into gear wise has a lot to do with that. And today we're going to be talking about rangefinders, because there's a lot of new stuff out there, and clothing, which it doesn't get a lot of publicity, but I think it's worth mentioning, especially when it's good clothing. But talk a little bit about Vortex Edge before we jump into our rangefinder talk.
I'd love to. Yeah, that's kind of what I head up here. We have a really cool facility that I sit down in with the rest of our team. We've got 6 full-time instructors here. And, more so than just a cool facility, I think we've got some really neat classes, and we got some really great people teaching them. But we kind of run the gambit as far as training goes. You can learn a little bit of everything at Edge if you go online and check out our classes. We've got intro classes for people who have never picked up a gun before, or a specific type of firearm before, whether that's pistol, AR-15, or long range precision stuff. And then we kind of go up from there. You can take one of our 1 level, 2 level, or 3 level classes in each of those respective disciplines too. And then we've got some neat specialty classes that are more application specific. So home defense, concealed carry, hunter marksmanship, that sort of thing. We kind of like to try to be able to, obviously we have so many different optics. I think that probably partly is what plays into it. We want to be able to play to a lot of different applications within shooting, which there are plenty. And so we've got guys who have the ability to teach in pretty much all those things.
And that's what's really unique about this too, is the instruction is each instructor, from what I experienced, was knowledgeable in almost every facet of marksmanship and the tools of the trade, if you will. You know, you can go to these long range courses and know that the guys are going to be experts, no matter what, because you go to some training across the country and it's like, okay, I'm going to go to long range school. Well, we don't do a whole lot of, maybe it's the AR stuff or the night vision or anything like that. You guys man, everyone there is really well-rounded.
Yeah, they are. And a lot of them have their specialties. I think we've got, a couple of snipers who really obviously enjoy the long range stuff. We got a couple guys who shoot pistol competition. They really gravitate towards that. A lot of the guys carried an AR for the, some professional capacity. So a lot of them have experience in that. And then each one kind of has their own individual things they nerd out on. Some of the guys are really into preparedness and the home defense stuff. Some guys, we got one guy who's really into the night vision side of things. He's been running our night vision curriculum. And so it's nice to be able to have the specialties there, but then all of them, I think, because they're all enthusiasts themselves, they wind up heading to that guy, and everybody getting trained up a lot themselves too, so that they can go on and teach it.
Well, and something that goes, not all instructors are good teachers. And I think that kind of goes, I don't think a lot of people understand that. But what the instruction that I received, it didn't matter, we were in an intro to long range course, and it didn't matter if you had been shooting, for 20 plus years, or you just now picked up a gun. The teaching was really what kind of stood out to me, is that you learned something, whether you were an expert or a novice.
Yeah. There's a lot of places that'll just give you a list of drills to run, and that's more of babysitting. And there's few places that I think really do the full-on instruction side of things, where you're getting that one-on-one time where somebody's actually going in and really dissecting everything that you're doing and trying to help you become the best version sort of yourself and what it is that you hope to be. So that's rare. I feel like it's been really hard to put together even just a team of 6 guys to do that. And they're hard to find, but the team we got right now, I think
that's what I was about to ask you, where you found your teachers. 'Cause I mean, that is tough to find. It's hard to find well-rounded folks who can teach.
Yeah. No, I won't divulge my sources, because otherwise that well might run dry. But
and you shouldn't. You really shouldn't. But no, it's great, and they instruct you and they show you how to use your equipment, and part of that is your rangefinders, and that's really kind of what we're going to talk about a little bit today. Talk about some of the new stuff going on at Vortex, because you guys kind of revamped some of the old favorites.
Yeah, absolutely. We recently did come out with a huge host of new rangefinders, and we've had rangefinders for a while. I want to say the first year we had one was 2012 or 2013, something like that. And that's really not that long ago. It's pretty incredible to see where the technology has come, though. I mean, our entry-level rangefinder right now is, it was our flagship rangefinder in terms of performance. Actually, it's even better than our flagship rangefinder was when we very first came out with rangefinders. So that's pretty wacky. When we first came out with that Ranger 1000, we thought that thing was the cream of the crop. That thing was incredible. And now something that's even better, we're like, yeah, this is a great place to start. So we have 4 handheld monocular style rangefinders. We even have binocular rangefinders now with the Furies. Rangefinding is just that you can't understate its importance in the field, whether you're a hunter or a shooter. If you don't know the distance of a target, you're not going to be having a very fun day out there. Maybe if you're just out plinking, you might have the chance to walk yourself onto a target after some educated guessing, but even then you're wasting ammo. If you're out in the field and you're getting a once in a lifetime shot at a big animal or something like that, or just a really good shot that's only going to present itself for a short period of time, you just don't have the rounds to waste, the time to waste. You can't guess at that stuff. It is paramount. And now the technology is out there so that it's either very accessible or it's just profoundly accurate, fast, and capable.
Well, and that's one thing that I think is amazing in the progression of Vortex rangefinders is how we went from, the initial run in like 2000, and I think it was 2012, to now, when you're building in a ballistic calculator and you're building all these little nuances into such a small package. and you're really refining the size. And I really feel like for backcountry hunters and archery guys, kind of like myself, is, man, shaving off like weight and making them more slimline is huge, but there's more features in them.
Yeah, absolutely. So
And
in not much space at all, the computing power those things have, really, that's where I think a lot of people kind of just the casual observer doesn't really understand all that's going on under the hood. They think to go from a Crossfire 1000, for example, up to a Razor 4000, you just stick a more powerful laser in it. But actually, the computer inside that receives the laser after that laser is shot out and reflected off your target and back to the rangefinder, that's some pretty impressive stuff, some pretty incredible science and physics and whatever else it is, electronic engineering of some sort. That's all beyond my pay grade. But whatever it is that goes on in there, I mean, that's all so advanced nowadays, and the amount of computing power that you have just inside your palm is wild.
So what's the testing like there? I mean, when you guys are developing something new that you want to do within Rangefinder or something like that, what's the process like? And I mean, because you guys are in a unique area and your offices are located in such a unique area that you've got like public land behind your offices that you guys can actually go. It's almost like you can get real time analytics just by walking outside your doors. It's a unique spot.
Yeah, that doesn't hurt. So we have a really diverse landscape here. We are in Wisconsin, which I know a lot of people think of as like big, thick, heavy timber, and we definitely have that up north. Where we are here in southwestern Wisconsin, it's more rolling, a little bit more open with a lot of farmers' fields and things like that. So, I mean, it's just a matter of going out and testing. First off, everybody sees the number on the outside of the rangefinder, that maximum capable distance on reflective targets. You got to go out, you got to test that, make sure that's accurate. We've got big old Blue Mountain here really close to us. And so that's kind of our version of a mountain. We can go up on top of that and range targets really far away. In fact, actually, we came out pretty lucky. Vortex is almost exactly 5,000 yards from Blue Mountain. So we were able to put up a big reflective target just right out in the parking lot practically, and then range that from the top. But we practice that. You got to practice there. You got to test in all weather conditions, because weather conditions do very much affect your rangefinder's performance. You got to test on all different types of targets. We're not just testing on reflective targets. We got to test on more realistic targets, because a deer is not going to be carrying a stop sign on the side of its body. Unfortunately, a nice big reflective sign would be great.
That would be nice. That would be nice.
But we got to test on more realistic targets, trees, rocks, deer hides, stuff that soaks up a laser a little bit more rather than reflecting it. It's extensive. There's so much time that goes into this. And then of course that's just testing its function, not testing things like weather resistance and impact resistance. Right. I mean, it takes multiple years to get a product from concept to actually on a store shelf ready for you to buy it and take it on your hunt.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm going to jump in here real quick from a word from our sponsors, but on the other side of this, let's talk about the different levels and what someone who's in the market for a new rangefinder should look for. Check out the future of optics at atncorp.com. That's atncorp.com. They've got a host of optics to fulfill your nighttime hunting addiction. I'm going to tell you right now, if you are maybe thinking about thermal imaging, let me suggest a couple of them for you. Maybe it's the OTS HD, which is their little monocular handheld. That'll help you scan the fields and everything looking. And if you want to close that deal on those big hogs or that big sounder of hogs that have just been tearing up those crop fields, I would suggest to you the Thor 4. It's a premium top of the line thermal optic that you are going to love every minute of it. It has unbelievable amount of features like one-shot zeroing, which makes it a lot easier on the range. So head on over to atncorp.com to find out more. SIG Sauer. I've been singing the SIG Sauer Cross praises from every mountaintop you can imagine. It's no surprise that I like this gun because of its lightweight features. It's about 6.2 pounds, or or like 6.5 pounds, somewhere right around in there. But it's available in 308, 277 SIG Fury, and the one I've got is in 6.5 Creedmoor, which I'm not gonna lie, my kids are kind of taking over this gun. Both of them shot their deer with it this year, which is kind of scary for me. I'm thinking I might need another one, and the 277 SIG Fury might be the one. But it is created to meet the demands of the both precision long range shooting and extreme backcountry hunting. I'm going to say backcountry hunting is where this thing's going to shine for a very long time, but it's designed and built here in the USA. Go visit sigsauer.com to learn more. And Silencer Central, I just recently got a Banish 30 can in the mail. Don't adjust your dials and don't back up. You heard me correctly. I got it in the mail. And how I did that was with Silencer Central, you can get everything done over through mail. They send you everything. They send you the fingerprint kits. They send you the information on how to upload your photo and get it to them. And then they manage for the entire life. They manage your trust, which I think is really important. And especially nowadays when it seems so hard to do. You know, there was a time when I delayed getting a suppressor because I thought it was difficult. I don't have to worry about that anymore. And with the new e-forms process, wait times are around that 90-day waiting period rather than a year, which is how long it took me to get my last one. So if you have any interest in that and getting a suppressor, which I highly recommend it, it's just hearing safe. Your kids are going to like it more. And I'm telling you, if you want to take your wife, your girlfriend out hunting or shooting, they're going to appreciate it as well. So visit silencercentral.com. All right, I'm back with Jimmy Hamilton of Vortex, and he's up there in Wisconsin enjoying better weather than down here in Louisiana, I promise you. We were talking about rangefinders, and kind of I wanted to lead this little segment off with what guys should be looking for in rangefinders at their various levels, because there's guys out there that don't need a razor, you know, or the highest end Furies. There's just guys that don't need it. Let's start with this guy. This is the guy's the weekend hunter. And by the way, now is the time to buy your equipment. I don't know if a lot of you know that, but it's the off season. Really my peak times of purchasing gear for the next season is June, July. So I know it's going to get there in time. I can test it. I can work with it. Highly recommend that. But let's start with the guy who's just the weekender. He's got shots out to, 400 to 600 yards potentially, probably no greater than 200, hunting a mixture of farmlands and thick vegetative plots of land. What does that guy need?
Yeah. So again, like I said, I mean, we are in the golden age of electronics and handheld electronics. So when I recommend an entry-level product now, or again, remember, it was a very short time ago that would have been the absolute cream of the crop flagship product that everybody was ogling over. So, I mean, something like the Crossfire 1000, that's a fantastic rangefinder with all the performance that person you described would need. So that 1,000-yard capability, that's again on the reflective targets. That's how usually these rangefinders are going to be measured when you see that number. But on things like trees and rocks, which usually can be conveniently placed right next to something you're trying to shoot, if you need to, it can get out to about 700 yards. And then on things like an actual deer hide or something like that, you can get out to about 500 or so. So that's all the capability, certainly like a lot of archers, for example, in that type of terrain, or even a lot of rifle hunters would need. And it comes with, now these have our entry-level rangefinder now has an illuminated display. So when you're in low light scenarios, that is a great feature to have. You can actually see the reticle against the target you're trying to range, get a little bit more accurate and see the readout better. Of course, you're getting nice optical quality and just a really intuitive menu that you get to cycle through for changing things. There's a couple of different modes too that we have now on our rangefinders, which I can go into as well. I mean, really just plain and simple though. I think that's a great way.
And the Crossfire is kind of what I utilize quite a bit when I'm archery hunting, because it seems like the you guys have a special name for it, I'm sure, but by the time I press that button, and a deer's moving through the thick woods or something like that, the readout is super quick. And that's been the case for quite some time with the Vortex rangefinders. That I've been really impressed with is the feedback that you get on time you press that button to the time that laser hits that critter or that object, and it bounces back to you.
Return
Talk a
time.
little.
Return time is huge. Yeah, it is. And, you want to be able to have that rangefinder give you a range very quickly, because deer aren't always just standing still for a long period of time. So return time is huge. There's a trade-off there, right, that we have to go through. We can tell a rangefinder to take a longer time. That is something that we can essentially, like I said, tell it to do. And that might build a slightly better target picture, or it might allow it to range out a little bit further, perhaps, but it's taking more time. So we have to find the happy medium of giving somebody that instant feedback while also maximizing ranging performance. I mean, even on things like the Viper HD 3000, I'm skipping over the Diamondback here for a brief period of time, but on the Viper and the Razor 4000, those have an ELR mode, which you are actually telling the rangefinder, hey, take a little bit longer, but this is going to help us range out at further distances, get a more accurate distance at those really long ranges.
Okay.
So that's kind of one of those modes you get to go through. But that kind of gives you a little peek behind the curtain of some of the stuff that the rangefinders are deciphering.
So moving up the ladder, for the guy who's, he's an avid hunter. He takes probably 2 or 3 backcountry hunting trips a year with his rifle, but he enjoys the PRS game. He enjoys running out there, or he's hitting the NRL, series. What do those guys need? What do you look for?
Yeah, I start to look in those guys' cases, a rangefinder that can range a little bit further. I mean, we're naturally making the progression up here to like the Diamondback 2000 or the Viper HD 3000. Some people are probably thinking, well, I'm not going to shoot at 2,000 or 3,000 yards. I'm not going to hunt anything at 2,000 or 3,000 yards. Right. That all, it's kind of a barometer again, just to see what the performance of that rangefinder can be and what it's likely going to do. If you've got a rangefinder that can perform really well or out to 3,000 yards, then anything within 1,000 yards is a cakewalk for it. You're not going to really have much of an issue. This is environmental conditions dependent. Even the most powerful rangefinder on just one of those tremendously foggy days, I mean, don't expect anything out of it. That is something you still have to contend with. But you're not trying to always maximize the rangefinder, max it out, redline it, if you're always playing right up to that number. So that helps. You're also going to be getting better optical quality, which is good to be able to see those targets out at greater distance. Targets, in, PRS competitions and things that I've been to, depending on the location, they can be really hard to spot. If you are getting to a stage towards the end of the competition and a target's been all shot to heck, and it used to be bright white and now it's gray and it's against a bunch of cut timber and a wet field or something, I mean, anything like that, it's very hard to see. So having good optics is nice to have. So, I mean, this is all stuff that starts to come into play. I definitely would say with rangefinders, you'll never be disappointed if you get the best rangefinder that you can afford. Yeah. Even if it is a little bit further in distance, you may need.
That's a good point. I mean, yeah, just get what you can afford. And I tell people the same thing with glass, I mean, get the best that you can afford, because there's a lot of great glass out there. But man, what works for you is going to be the most you can afford. So you kind of hit on weather. Aside from fog, I kind of think fog's a kind of easy one. What are the worst conditions for rangefinders?
So anything that's going to cause where there's a lot of particulate of any sort between you and the target, we need to realize the laser, even though you can't see it in the visible spectrum, it is a light that is emanating or emitting from that laser rangefinder. It has to travel all the way to the target, it has to bounce off, come back to the receiver on your rangefinder, and it has to do all that, in across expansive landscapes, large distances. So there's a couple of things, like I said, any particulate in the air, whether you're in a really dusty region, if it's foggy, if it's snowing or raining,
Yeah.
all that is stuff in the air that's going to be wreaking havoc on a laser traveling through the air. If you do this with any sort of a visible laser, you can see this, when you shine it across a room and it starts hitting particulate in the air, that is all, the laser essentially being degraded between you and the target. The other thing that will come into play is direct sunlight. So if I'm trying to range something, if it's on a horizon or if just the sun is very, very low in the sky and it's shining right into my laser rangefinder, that is a lot of what we call noise. So the laser rangefinder is trying to get a very specific laser wavelength or, whatever it is. I'm not a physicist. So some of these
Come on.
I apologize, but the laser, it's trying to detect that amidst all the other bits of light that are surrounding it. And so if you're overpowering it with a ton of sunlight, then it's going to have a hard time really filtering out that laser. And the last thing I'll mention is the human error, the human element. This is something that people underestimate all the time. It's very difficult to hold a rangefinder and range a target extremely far away and actually have your hands be still enough such that that laser is going to bounce off that thing so far away, come back, and then make it to the rangefinder's seeing eye. So if you're ranging out at any extended distance, it's always best off of a tripod or some sort of firm base that's going to keep the rangefinder from vibrating or shaking. That's one of the biggest reasons I think why I see people having issues with their laser rangefinder with the return. Sometimes they're getting different distances every time they range what they think is the same object, or sometimes they're not getting ranges at all, especially if you've got like a deer and they're in the foreground and you're trying to range that deer and behind them is kind of nothing for another, multiple miles. If you miss that deer with the laser, that's going off into la la land. So that's something to be aware of. Now, again, we have modes that can help with that. So I'll kind of nerd out here if I can on some of the modes. But like in that situation I described where a deer's on the horizon or an animal's on the horizon or your target is, and there's a bunch of stuff way beyond it, kind of too far out that you don't care about, you don't want the range for, you want that thing in the foreground, you switch to first mode. So then the rangefinder is going to filter out if it does happen to bounce off anything behind the deer and come back to the rangefinder. This is where the computer's brain can filter out any of that other stuff, and it's just giving you what it got first, what reception it received first. Conversely, if you're trying to do the opposite thing, there is last mode in some of our rangefinders, which will give you self-explanatory, the last reception. And then your normal mode is essentially like what I also like to call best mode. So that's just where, we have a laser, it's shooting out, it has some beam divergence. There is a chance it's going to bounce off of other things other than the target you're pointing at, especially the further out you go. But whatever one is giving it the best and strongest reception, that's the display that you'll get. So those are a couple of the modes like I've talked about. And I mentioned that ELR earlier too, that the Viper and Razor have. So those are things you can cycle through to tell the rangefinder kind of what you're looking for.
Yeah, I encountered a ranging issue this year where it was, so I was on the deer. I kind of had an idea of how far it was, but I wasn't sure because there was some undulation in the property lines, and so I was shooting it with the rangefinder, wouldn't pick it up. And I was like, what am I doing? Like, and it would read like 70, 80 yards, and I'm like, I know that deer is not 80 yards. Like that deer is like 270. And so I'd hit it again, and I just don't know. Well, I'm running level with the deer, and what I thought, well, there's grass and there's just little bits of Johnson grass like ticking the top of that laser. And so you've got to make sure like there is a clear line of sight. And I think a lot of guys, like, they think their laser rangefinder is not picking it up, but it is picking something up. There's something impeding that line of sight, because I've had it hit barbed wire fences too. Yeah, I mean, same thing. Like, so that's one thing I think a lot of guys don't think about.
Yeah. The next step is getting the rangefinder to read your mind, but we're a little bit far out from that.
Yeah. Could you?
I mean, one of the pro tips I know a lot of guys will use to around here is just using scan mode. So when you hit the measure button, instead of tapping the measure button, like, okay, I got it lined up just right, and tap. That tap can induce some vibration, and it can real quickly accidentally shoot that laser out at a spot you didn't want it to go. So if you just kind of get the tap out of the way and hold down the measure button, it'll enter into scan mode, and then it's constantly feeding you the distance of whatever you're looking at. So that's one thing too, where like sometimes if you're holding it down, you're in scan mode, you're pointing at a deer, you'll see like 423, 422, 423, and then all of a sudden 117. And then you realize, okay, so I saw a lot of 4 something, and then all of a sudden there's this one. I think that's the outlier. I think that's where I caught something else. You can kind of use the process of elimination.
And that's a great little tip, just for using that scan mode, which is another great feature that you guys include in some of them. What about the Furies? Who are those guys that need to take a look at series? Now I know why I like them. But I'll tell everybody that here in a little bit. But who are those for?
I think I can go through and I can first kind of address who maybe they're not for.
There you go.
First off, like if you're somebody who's hardcore about every bit of optical kit that you've got and you want to have everything exactly the way that you want it, maybe the Fury is not for you because you are kind of stuck to that binocular and then that rangefinder combination. So you don't get to kind of pick and choose. That's one area that I might suggest. And then the other thing is too, it's a 5,000 yard capable rangefinder. So again, when we go into, the weekend warrior, that may not be something that they need. That said, I'm not going to rule out the archer because you're probably not going to be shooting your bow at 5,000 yards or anywhere near that, but you now have the ability to use just one hand to glass with binoculars and range. So that's where the beauty of it comes into play. You can hold your bow, you can be holding whatever else it is in the one hand, even if you're, up in a tree stand or something like that. It just frees up another hand. It also keeps you from having to do the old bino rangefinder shuffle in a glass pack or a chest harness. That's kind of a pain, and that wastes time. That is a lot of movement if you're in the stand that you don't want to be kind of having to sacrifice when the deer could be so close. So you eliminate a lot of wasted movement and wasted time by having something like that.
Well, I think if you look at like just a seasonal guy, those guys hunting early season, they start in, September 15th through, you go through when trees start to lose their foliage, you start to look at those guys that hunt that thick stuff. And it might not be on a field edge, maybe, those probably may not be for you, but once those leaves start to fall and opening up, vantage points and stuff like that, and you can see further, or you're hunting on those field edges, in those later months, yes, I would say the Furies are absolutely for you.
Yeah, it's just it's a great package. It's a great 2-in-1 thing, especially then if you get into the Fury ABs. Now you got ballistics on board, so we get into the whole rifle hunter, rifle, even just shooter, precision shooter. That's all stuff that's invaluable. You just start to get more of a suite on hand in your hands, rather than just kind of like individual tools that you're having to all just manage. It all kind of becomes one thing, which is pretty cool.
Well, and if you take a lot of people hunting, I would say those are absolutely 100% for you. If you have kids, man, let them run your rangefinder. But man, when it's time to get down to business, you don't want to have to take your eyes off the target to grab your rangefinder. You've got it all in one. So if you're taking a lot of people out, or you're glassing preseason, anything like that, they're just a great tool to have around.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's kind of shift gears here and talk a little bit about clothing. Well, hold on a second. Before we get into that, I think it needs to be said that the warranty you guys have on your products is unmatched. And that's really by design. You guys believe in your products and you stand behind them, but I'm sure you've got some crazy stories out there about rangefinders getting turned in, one way or another, and probably due to their fault, their own, because I've done it before.
Yeah, that happens a lot. You know, when I say, I guess I should qualify that, because when I say a lot, I say, you know, we see a fair amount, but in the grand scheme of things, really, it's actually kind of a percentage of a percent.
Right.
But, you know, I mean, stuff happens. I think if we expect, you know, anybody who puts some sort of a guarantee that says you guarantee it from, you know, if there wasn't some sort of defect, what do they call that, a manufacturing defect or something like that?
Yeah.
If we expect people to be able to understand if we ever made a mistake, which we are capable of doing from time to time, then we would also assume that they expect us to understand if they make a mistake. So that's where that comes in. That's just being good people, I think.
Right.
But you know, the fact that when we came out with rangefinders, there was a big question mark as to, do we put the VIP warranty on rangefinders? Because now we're getting into electronics, guys.
Yeah.
And if you know anything about electronics, they have a tendency to screw up after a while, and that's no fault of anybody's necessarily.
Right.
But the thing is, that's just what we do. That's just the culture here. That's something that you can't take out of Vortex. We decided that, yes, it may seem crazy, but we're going to do it. Of course, that puts the onus on us, to make a really good product that isn't going to break. Anybody who puts a lifetime warranty on a piece of garbage we're running a bad business.
Right.
And B, it also puts the onus on us to keep innovating, because if we're going to make one rangefinder, we're really never going to change it for the rest of our lives. And, you know, people then see no reason to ever upgrade. Then, yeah, you use that thing for 10 years. Sorry about that. That's a foul.
Oh, no worries. No worries.
You use that thing for 10 years or whatever, and then it breaks, you just get a new one. They haven't upgraded anything. No, we got to keep upgrading stuff, because if we are going to run a good business, then we want people to buy the new ones.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, that's kind of how that works. But it's important to us that we take care of people no matter what it is that happens.
Yeah, if you go there, one of the cool things is we got to view a little bit behind the scenes when Jimmy walked us through the building, and man, they've got all kinds of stories about their products, like in-house fires, and you know, and they dropped it off the back of the truck, which I'm sure none of us have ever done before. And they replace it. I mean, it's really cool. Now, next week, I'm going to have Jimmy back, and we're going to talk about your clothing options for everyday wear, and potentially down the line, some hunting wear for all you hunting solid fans.